Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach. I'm joined by my co host and producer, Holly Deschenes. So today we're recording this before Thanksgiving. In general, we're heading into the holidays here, and that brings up a lot of family patterns, which are my favorite. So today we're going to be talking about the lens of permission to awaken. Awaken doesn't have to be this big mystical thing, it could just be about a little bit of questioning that goes on, asking deeper questions about the life you've created so far. And much of that, if you haven't done much work on yourself, will be a product of your upbringing, a lot of default things in life. And many of us kind of hit a wall with that stuff. That's the midlife crisis type stuff. It's I just don't feel like I can do this anymore, whatever it is. Yeah, and that can be amplified in family patterns and the roles we show up in there of maybe we've become somebody completely different, but when we go into those family settings, we feel like we kind of snap back into childhood. So we feel like we have to be something we're not. And so this idea of awakening, it's about questioning your reality a little bit, because everything is generated off our beliefs. We experience things through that lens. And these are just kind of conclusions I've made about life up until this point. And with this work, we're always trying to examine, are those beliefs working for you, right? Does that get you to where you want to go? Is that creating these perpetual problems over and over again? You may have outgrown things, but our mindset might be still kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It might be a little bit attached to the old way of being because that brings consistency. And much of what we talk about here is preparing you to take new steps. That requires asking deeper questions. It also requires this ability to spend some time with yourself. So many of us really fear being alone, and that's why we stay busy, is when we're alone, we might be confronted with these things. It's more difficult to get this space. It has to be more of a conscious thing now because of, entertainment and our phones and things like that, where I could be by myself and just scrolling, but I'm not connecting with myself. It's just about putting those things aside and just kind of seeing what starts to surface. And initially that might be kind of scary. There's probably going to be some discomfort there, but we want to learn to be at peace with that discomfort. It's a signal. It's telling us things about ourselves. We get to explore that with curiosity and start to really align with preferences. Once again, we're always trying to update the mind here, where it's like, I have this past and that's led me to certain conclusions, but were those conclusions correct? And if they're built on pain, if they're built on trauma, we're seeing situations through that lens. That's why we're always motivated to recreate those things so we can learn about them. So a lot of stuck patterns happen that way. This is really just about kind of opening things up, moving one step below the surface and see what that looks like. It doesn't have to be we're getting to the bottom of it. It's more of just this gradual trying to rediscover yourself and just, it's starting to be more conscious about your choices and what that might lead to for you, rather than just being on this normal, predictable track. What if I have strong desires that are pointing me in this other direction, but I'm just terrified of that? Those are all principles around awakening. It's just, it's asking deeper questions. It's reconnecting with yourself and getting clear on what you really want. And in that process, we might be shedding some outdated beliefs. So as I open this up, Holly, is there anything that comes to mind so far?
In this idea of, awakening, you mentioned the midlife crisis. I think the millennial generation is trying to recoin that to a midlife awakening at the moment. There's a lot of content kind of that's steering it in that direction.
So that's perfect.
Yes, perfect. I think there's some other things as people start to hit, 30s, 40s, whatever, where you just are reflecting. And one of the things I think that could be happening is in some cases, awakening feels big and could maybe intimidating, or what do you lose in an awakening? I do appreciate you going into some of those details in your opening, right? About it could be small steps, but I would love for us to talk a little bit about what are some smaller things that could lead into that awakening, and where are sort of, you mentioned family patterns as well. Where are the places that are the best sort of openers into if you're after an awakening, if that's what you want in your life, like where's the best place to start? That was a long-winded way for me to get there. That's where I
Yeah,
was trying to get.
I teach a pretty gradual process. We can always accelerate that in deep dive. I offer those services as well if you want like a big overhaul, but it is just more of where are you at right now? And so what are some things that would create some better outcomes for you, right? And that doesn't, you've accumulated this life. And so it's not all of it needs to be thrown away. Not all of it, there's a lot of good things in there. It's just about zoning into the stuff that we've kind of hit a wall with that is leading to burnout, exhaustion. The idea is where you kind of like you're dreading certain things, right? Or something brings a lot of anxiety up. Commonly, like when people go home for the holidays, there's the week before, there's anxieties, because it's just you feel this pull, it's just, oh, like I have to go be somebody I'm not. I might have created, and that's saying some of this stuff just might take some like updating, right? You might have actually like created a very different life already, but there might be some of these old ideas you get plugged into where we have a very like fixed mindset, right? And a lot of that is, family roles. It could also be, things in society. It could be having to do with your job or political affiliations, those types of, it's just like whatever we attach our identity to, we tend to want to fix to that forevermore. I view life as really this series of phases where, we're always like growing, shifting, changing, but our mind's not always up to speed with that. We feel conflicted because there's this like gap that gets created where I might have some experiences that point to different conclusions. I might question some things subtly, but I might not allow myself to fully go there because of the fear of what that might mean. And yeah, when we say like awakening, it's just like, oh yeah, I have to throw everything away and just rebuild it from the start. That certainly does happen. I've done that many times. But it's really just like the version that's like going to suit you is going to be like, okay, based on like everything going on in my life, like these are some adjustments I'd like to make. It's about that kind of prompting to like go a little bit deeper into like, yeah, why do I keep having these same problems? Why do I attract these types of people in relationship? Why do I feel like I shut down in these certain situations? And as a coach, I stay out of strategy a lot of times, because let's just see what's underneath it. And then we heal it and then we don't like need the strategy, right? Because you just start to embody a different way of being. Just allowing ourselves to go beneath the surface to like discover what parts of myself have I left behind? Where did I make some pivotal decisions that, I feel trapped in, where maybe it could be career path. I've been on this track so long that I don't know what it's like to not do that anymore. So it's terrifying to even think about what that might look like. Oftentimes the solutions, it's like a subtle off ramp, right? It's, hey, you have all these skills, you have all this life experience that you've built up, and there's a lot of useful stuff there. So how can we like tweak it? How can we shift it to align with the way that you feel at peace with? Because a lot of times, especially when we're in a negative place with some sort of topic, we do switch to this all or none thinking. Like our mind thinks it has to be a certain way or it can't happen at all. We're really like scanning and searching for nuance every step of the way of, there's the intense identity shifts that like, let's say with like an athlete that retires, right? Of, okay, I've identified so long with this way of being and now I don't have that. There's subtle career shifts. There's like major career shifts. There's like beginning and endings of relationships, all these life transition things. We've attached our identity to something, and the thing is, if I haven't had a relationship forever, I might be like, oh, I'll never find somebody. And I might start to build my identity around that. But then if I've been with somebody for a long time, it's, oh, I don't know who I am without this person. It's all these questions where it's like, where do we like not allow ourselves to go? Where do I feel shut down, suppressed? Where do I feel like I have to be something I'm not? Where have I accepted limitation and don't feel like that can be adjusted or changed at all? Those areas we identified, it's going to be indicated by the stress response. So when I think about it, it doesn't feel very good. And then my mind's going to be giving me data to support that. It's going to tell me the narrative of why I feel that way. So we can either just take that at surface value, or we could take a step back and we can examine that and we can ask that deeper questions. Why do I feel this way? Like, when did I first start to feel this way? Why do I believe these things? When we start to dig a little bit, you might, when you ask yourself those questions, the answers might not make sense. It might be like, well, I don't know. I feel like I've always thought this way, right? Or I feel like I had to think this way. When we're talking about identity shifts, it's our relationship to different subjects. So career, health. Yeah, let's say I've like struggled with weight like my whole life or whatever, and I don't know what it's like not to do that. If I've struggled with that, there's beliefs that support that way of being, and my mind's always motivated to keep things the same. All we're trying to do is being like, well, yeah, does this really have to be the same? Is there some shifts I can make that would make me feel more empowered, more optimistic, feel like there's more possibilities for me? The entry point in this work, it's always the stress response. When I think about the thing, how does it feel to me? And if it feels hopeless, it feels like there's no way. A lot of times we just leave it there. The awakening is really this awakening to your power to change your life. And that means like I have to start to embody different ideas. Like I have to shift my relationship with whatever that is to a healthier way of being. And so generally it's like I'm just trying to take it from that negative place to at least a neutral place. Because when something's neutral to me, I'm detached from it emotionally. And so I can look at it more objectively. In most problems that we all have, it's, well, if I really struggle in an area, there's somebody that's like really good at that, right? There's somebody that's like mastered that. There's somebody that's taken that same situation and has excelled from it. There is actually always a way. It's just like we might be too much in our own way to be able to see that or receive information. And so we have to kind of soften those beliefs. We have to shift out of it. That means like I have to dig in and I have to like get real with myself, and I have to get real with these ideas that I've formed. And yeah, if the dots don't really connect, if it doesn't make sense, that's where it's, oh, like, I don't know why I even believe this anymore. That's that softening. That means, oh, I've like loosened the foundations of it because I took the time to spend with it to really see what's there. At the bottom of it is always going to be you're trying to protect yourself from something, right? There's no mystery there. I have some sort of fear. I have some sort of idea that I'm running from or that I'm avoiding because of something that's happened to me in my past. That could just mean I was born into a family where options were extremely limited. There weren't possibilities. I didn't feel like there was anything I could do at that stage in life. And I might continue to carry that on even now, even though I have much more agency. These limitations are always in the mind. We always build our own prisons, quite literally, in our mind, in our nervous system, because our nervous system is kind of our performance regulator. If I don't have the beliefs to support something, it won't allow me to go there. I'm going to shut down. My mind's going to create these workarounds so that I sabotage things. And so everything at the end of the day is about creating safety. And we create safety by shifting how we see a situation. So I just have to be able to see this in a way that opens it up a little bit rather than it being so shut down. And it's a gradual process. When we're talking about major shifts, generally that's like some sort of big wake-up call happened for you, meaning you were miserable and then, something really bad had to happen for you to make you question things, right? Being like, oh, I can't continue, like a health scare or something like that, where I can't continue on the same path because it might destroy me. We can either do the smaller version of like just kind of continually adjusting things, or we can do the bigger version that, generally is built on a lot of pain and suffering, where it's just like, I have no other choice but to change. Whichever version suits you is what you're going to get. It's this ability to be like, well, I prefer to get things while they're small. I prefer to like work out smaller problems before they stack into like a major one. And sometimes we're not ready for it, right? So sometimes we need the catalyst. We need the big thing to happen to really shake us. But that's the idea of awakening, is generally hand in hand with some sort of major suffering or life event, because that's what makes you question everything. We can either question it every step of the way and just be really in tune with ourselves, or we can get the big thing that forces us to look at it. And then that's when we're going to have to really try and make some big changes. So there's different variations to this. And so if we make it a part of our daily routine of like, I do some reflection work. I just spend some time alone. I check in with myself. You're going to kind of have some gradual steps to take that don't have to be major. But if I've been like running from myself, if I've been running from everything I feel, if I've been like forcing myself to do things I hate on a regular basis, there's eventually a point where that hits a wall. The main idea behind it is it's also for your own good. Because if I'm miserable every day, one, like I'm probably not that fun to be around. Everybody's like picking up on that. But then also it's like I'm I'm internalizing all this stress on a regular basis, and that continues to stack up. So like every disease is linked to chronic stress, right? The system just stressed out and it has to shut down in certain ways to get your attention. It's just communicating information to you. So it's like we can either listen to it when it's small or we can wait till it's bigger. Not only are we like helping ourselves in terms of health outcomes, we're also improving quality of life, we're improving relationship, we're improving like our, we're getting in tune with our purposes, which is, I feel like there's a reason I'm doing things rather than I'm just going through the motions because like I've built this life and I don't know how to get out of it. Right. I like to build subtle off ramps. I like to build to these ideas of like, okay, what's like exciting for you? What's something that could motivate you enough to want to ask those deeper questions, because the growth path like kind of forces you to face yourself. That's like how we do it willingly is we just have to have something, that some bigger picture that we're working towards, some like higher purpose. There's so many different variations to this. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could just be like, okay, well, I'm in this job that's like making me miserable. Do I need to change companies? Do I need a different career around this similar, same skill sets? I've already developed all this stuff. Is there a better version that would suit me? But when we like force ourselves into misery, that's where we really feel hopeless and that there's no possibilities. It could be in relationship where I might just need to have some tough conversations with somebody. I might need to just try and maybe I've like shut down my voice and I'm not speaking up about things and I'm just like people pleasing all the time. Maybe it's about me like forming some boundaries. Maybe it's about me like having the tough conversation so I can be more understood and realigning the relationship. Last week we talked about recalibrating relationships. Like that's all part of it, is just this current version doesn't work anymore, or it's increasingly making me more miserable. What adjustments can I make? Or yeah, do I need to kind of throw it all out and like start from scratch? It's by taking like an inventory of your life and what are some opportunities that I can take some steps towards that would make me feel stronger, empowered, build some confidence, especially if I'm struggling with those things. It's just, but we need some sort of bigger picture we're working towards. You might even be at the point where you like lost the bigger picture. Like maybe it's like you've given up on dreams and all those things. Well, so the first step there would be to like, how can we reconnect to some things that you feel like are manageable at this stage? It doesn't have to be this massive thing. It could just be, what are some small steps I can take that would make me feel better, that might build up to me having options or opportunities down the road. We start today, right? We start as soon as we have the recognition that, maybe there are some things to change. And maybe the way I'm seeing this situation isn't serving me. Maybe it's actually very damaging to me and the people around me.
As you were going through some of that, I was thinking about a couple of things, and that is, you pointed it out right there at the end, right? There's a chance that, if you've lost some of the big dreams or something that you used to have, that could be cause for somebody to want to find an awakening. But I was also thinking a little bit about how, like a lot of stuff that we talk about on this podcast, it can be uncomfortable to look at these things. And that potentially could be a deterrent for someone, right? Like if they get to a point of discomfort. So if someone is like bumping up against that, what would you tell them?
It's about shifting your relationship with this idea of discomfort. Many of us have kind of built this like, a lot of times you're on the track where you build a life where it's like, oh, my basic needs are met. And so like, that's good. As long as I don't have to worry about that stuff, then I'm okay. But it's like, that's also not like very fulfilling. We might be like a little bit numb to discomfort. We may have built a life where we're not challenged very often. That's the thing, is when we're like, it's kind of like our fire's distinguished, right? Everything's like shut down. Where it's like that spark that pushes us towards challenge, like is kind of suppressed. That always just kind of goes back to the question, well, like what type of life do you want to live? There's no right or wrong answer to that, but maybe a comfortable life's all you want and you're good with that. I mean, you're probably not listening to this podcast if that's the case. But also it's like even in those cases, well, I'm like, well, like there could be at least like small things that like get you excited and out of your comfort zone, right? Where it can get some energy flowing again. Because if we're just so routine oriented, we just have all these structures in place to keep us comfortable. It actually over time that continues to shrink. It's just I get more rigid the more I don't work these muscles. My tolerance for discomfort, I might get pretty reactive anytime somebody makes me uncomfortable. I think we have a lot of those cases now where people get offended a lot and everybody wants their safe space and all that. It's just like the idea is resilience. It is like life should have some challenges in it, and it is for your own good. Because these are muscles that we need to work. And one of the most fulfilling things any of us get in life is progress. I'm working towards something and I'm better today than I was yesterday. And I'm on this trajectory, and it's rewarding to see the growth, right? And so if I'm not seeing growth in any area of my life, odds are is like I'm actually, trending downward in some capacity. If I have this comfort, I'm never challenged, like everything gets weaker and weaker in me because of that. The willingness to face these things it's for our own good, but then it is also like all the inspiring people that we've ever seen. It's like, that's what they just like willingly face like really hard things. I think that's probably why I work with triathletes and things like that is because of that mindset of like, oh, I'm just going to go do really hard things all the time. It doesn't have to be that way, but the kind of the payoff when we do something challenging and overcome it, like that's very rewarding for our confidence. It does expand our mind. It makes us believe that more things are possible for us. That discomfort's the signal that, I'm in this predictable system. I don't encounter much resistance. Okay. We know with like lifting weights, like that's how you get stronger. You need the resistance. It's shifting our association to when stress comes up, when resistance comes up. Those are all growth opportunities. And it is my choice whether I want to face that head on or if I want to avoid that. But I would say there's like no escaping that. I can delay these things, but once again, if something's a problem and I'm just not addressing it, it is still building and gathering energy in the background, right? So that's where it leads to bigger and bigger things where I might think I'm like good for a while, but then I might get blindsided by something, something might give out because like I wasn't strengthening myself. This idea of discomfort, it is our cue for growth. We don't have to take on every challenge. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I just do hard things all the time. It could just be like, okay, well, if I'm being real with myself, this is an area where I've stagnated. This is an area where I feel like I've started refusing challenges a lot, and that doesn't feel very good inside. My job is to always get you to connect with yourself and feel what's true for you. And there may be times where, yeah, I just want things to be comfortable for a few years or whatever it is. But it's like, I don't think that can be like maintained throughout the rest of your life. I think eventually challenges are going to hit that you're going to have to face. And that's it. Life can be difficult, and it's a lot more difficult if we're operating that way because we're not building those muscles. We're not building the resilience to be able to handle situations. And we'll notice like when we're in that comfort and it gets disrupted, like the less I engage with it, the more reactive I get to it, right? So now I become more demanding of other people to conform to me being comfortable. Otherwise, I'm going to throw them out of my life or, I'm going to cause a scene or whatever it is. And so it's that lack of resilience, that inability to handle things that comes from not working through the challenges that are given to you. One way or another, you got to face things. I don't see any way out of that. It is that, okay, I can delay things, but eventually I will have to take a look at that. And that's okay. Not everything has to be a right now thing. But that's why when we talk about being more conscious with your life, it is zoning into the things that matter most to you. And then being real with yourself about, okay, yeah, where am I being held back here, or where am I not showing up fully? Yeah, because that's gonna hurt when we're not doing that, right? Because this is meaningful to me. It's part of my identity, but I'm not like meeting the challenges associated with it. And that's what's going to kill our confidence. Right. And then we run into these ideas like of integrity of like, I say I want these things, but my actions don't support it. And all those types of things of we disconnect from ourselves. We become soft. We're inflexible as well because I become dependent on the comfort because I'm not relating with the discomfort. I think the discomfort is bad automatically when the discomfort is actually there to serve me and it's actually there to help me grow. That's something we can't escape, but we can definitely delay it. We can definitely avoid it. Eventually these things do come around. It's just kind of knowing that eventually you've got to face things in your life. And the comfortable existence, it might be good for now, but it does have its setbacks. It does have its negatives to it, where it is going to be bringing problems in different forms, and you won't be able to work through those things effectively because you're not actively engaged with them.
A couple of times you mentioned like you don't have to take on all the hard things. Yeah, like I don't entirely resonate with that as the girl who consistently signs up for hard things, but yeah, it's something to think about.
It's a personal preference. And it's depends on the growth rate you want to operate at, right? So if
Sure,
I
sure.
want to get really good at something, yeah, I'm going to go suffer repeatedly over and over again, and that's going to force me to grow really fast. Eventually, that might burn you out. That might get like, okay, I can't do that anymore. So then I might have to adapt to a different version, maybe a less intense one. But yeah, that is how you build capacity. It's just kind of knowing that once again, there's phases. There's times where we really need to dig in and get really serious and do a lot of hard things. But usually if we're stuck in that mode, it's like we're not actually recognizing the benefits that have like come from that suffering. We're not in this mode of like, oh, I've actually developed all these skill sets and I'm a lot more efficient now. And I actually don't need the same relationship with this idea anymore.
Say a little bit more about that, because this we've talked about this before, but I think that when we're thinking about awakening, that this could be part of it, right? It's the moving the goalpost or setting the bar higher or the whatever, which could make you just not recognize progress that you've made in the awakening. Or I don't know, the other thing that just popped in my head is I was saying that also could be like maybe it's even a comparison game that you get stuck in where you want it to be bigger or how it felt before or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I would ask the question, like, why do you feel the need to do that all the time? It's generally an idea of some version of not feeling good enough, of like, I need to achieve all these things in order to get that validation. And once again, that's a pretty standard trajectory for many high performers, is like you work really hard because of that idea. But there's going to be a switch at some point where it's just, oh, I don't need to feel that way anymore. Right. Where actually there's the actual awakening on the other side of that would be the realization that I am good enough and I've been good enough all along. And then that's where the intensity doesn't have to necessarily be there. I shift my relationship to it where it's not built on pain anymore, right? Where I'm just like doing it because I enjoy it, because I want to. Those are like those cleaner motivations that we look for, is like, I just want the power of choice in whatever I choose. And if I'm choosing something that's really hard because like I know that's going to develop some skills that I need, that is a conscious choice of like, yeah, I'm going to go into the cave and I'm going to like face the fears and I'm going to conquer myself. But it's like at the bottom, if I need all these things, like that's generally for somebody else and it's like not for me. If that's like all I'm like committed to. And so when we shift to like, oh, I'm worthy, I'm good enough, and all those things, it can come from this cleaner place of like, oh, I'm like recognizing like that all the hard work did pay off and I like feel really good about it. I'm not just chasing the next thing. Right. And that doesn't mean don't go after other things. It just means like it doesn't have that same like intensity that like something built on a negative foundation would. It's more of this healthier relationship of I can be present with it. I can really enjoy it. I can lose myself in it, but me expressing myself rather than me needing to create this thing in order to feel validated. And
So,
it's a difficult thing to shut off. Like once you like kind of adopt that way of being, you're developing all these skills, your capacity increases, like all these benefits come from it, but also you don't get to fully enjoy it. I think
sure, yeah.
part of life is like learning to enjoy the ride, learning to enjoy that journey of, well, yeah, I've worked really hard and now I actually like really believe in myself rather than me always like operating from a deficit here.
What I was trying to come up with a way to, because as you were talking about like driven out of pain, blah blah blah. You know, anybody who's familiar with like David Goggins' story, right? His whole story is built on like pain and this idea of like these horrible things that he said to himself that he then used as motivation, right? And this like stay hard and all that. And what I was trying to think of was like, who is like the awakened opposite of that, of like that, right? That's like the example of that. If he's the example of it's built on pain, who's the example? Maybe I can't think of one off the top of my head who's like, no, now I just like lose myself in this thing and I love it.
Well, I think things should be built on peace. So,
Sure.
I don't know. I guess it's not like a sexy message. I think everybody like loves the pain and struggle. Like that's hardwired into us, right? But so it takes so much work to get to the place of peace with something and just doing it for the enjoyment of it, where you're actually just like doing it for yourself. I think that's like more on the rare side. I think, many like spiritual teachers are going to like point to that idea, but you're also like trying to meet people where they're at. So if they still have the belief in like pain and suffering is how you get better, that's kind of what you need to work with. And I do that all the time with people. It's just like, okay, this is the fuel we're running on right now, but I'm just trying to shave some layers off of it so that we can get to this place of like, oh, I can just embody this in this really clean place, because that's like another level of mastery, right? Is like I'm no longer trying to like force my way through it. I'm like allowing things to flow through me. And that's like more of a surrender. It's the opposite of grinding. And you need the grinding phase to realize like, oh, like this is very costly energy wise. It doesn't actually have to be this hard. It's almost, but the belief in it needing to be that hard is what keeps us stuck in that. So then, we want to shift to like believing in flow and alignment and like the things that are like softer, which is kind of more of the feminine approach rather than the going to war for things. It's like aligning and drawing things to you and attracting things to you. That's kind of more of a peaceful place to be. But you can only get there. You can only like attract things to you like if you've like developed the skills to follow through on whatever it is, right? So we needed that version first to get to this version. So they're just two expressions of the same thing. It's just it's like shedding the struggle for the alignment piece is like I have to surrender all the parts of me that's trying to protect like my pain, because the pain's what's driving me. So if I no longer have the pain to drive me, what's going to drive me, right? And I think a lot of us fear that. It's like if
Yeah.
I shut off that valve, now I'm kind of like in limbo. I've gone through this where it's just like, yeah, like honestly, half the time I don't know what motivates me anymore. It's just like but it's just I'm motivated by like self-knowledge. Like I just want to like know myself at the deepest levels and act from that place, because the self-discovery is like what I'm really curious about. And I believe the self-discovery leads to mastery. And I believe when you can bring that energy to things, it's a much more elegant approach. Because yeah, I've done the grinding and working out for 10 hours a day and that kind of stuff. And it's just like I hit a wall with it. So I had to shift over here. I think they're phases, and I think you can run on that version for quite a while. But when you're pushing through pain, once again, that's now that pain is in our perception and how we're seeing things. So that's where I am going to be more emotionally reactive. I'm not going to be as balanced. I might be missing out on opportunities because like I believe things have to come through that form. There isn't an easier way. When alignment and flow is about like finding the path of least resistance, which isn't like a lazy approach, it's more of a conscious approach of being really in tune with yourself and navigating life from that place, rather. But if I have the beliefs that it needs to be really hard, my mind won't see the opportunities if it's easy, right? So I might reject the stuff and think it like, oh, that's a scam or that's fake or whatever it is, because I'm not believing in my alignment. Our beliefs are really this filter that we're seeing everything through, where I think there's probably some version of a balance between the two that's probably optimal. Of, I have this grit, this ability to work really hard, but then I also know when to take steps back and reflect and realign myself so that I can make the path smoother rather than trying to force things.
I think the call out that you made there about how the alignment and the flow or whatever doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy. I think that is an important message because I do think that can be misconstrued as people try to simplify things so they can understand them better. There's like nuance there.
There's so many layers and levels to all this stuff where, the nuance just like it goes all the way down of like everything's context. How do I relate to something? What do I believe is possible for me in that area? If I don't believe something's possible for me, I'm going to reject it and shut it down. If I believe it needs to come a certain way, that's so the struggle is usually how we get to nuance is we have to keep asking ourselves those bigger questions of, is there an easier way? Is there a better way? Is there a more efficient way? Is there a different way? It doesn't have to be grinding the gears every step of the way. It's more about that alignment. And it's like a continuous alignment. It's not just like, oh, I found it, now I'm good. But, I might find the flow and I might be able to ride that for a little while. But eventually I'm going to be confronted with another piece that I probably need to work through. And that's that ongoing journey thing of at every vantage point, you're going to have new desires that surface. And those new desires are designed to bring things out of you. I'm going to be confronted with more challenges. Every step I take, there's going to be new things that are born out of that I have to shed old identities. I have to rework things to realign. So it's this continuous realignment, but it's like, but the alignment isn't the only piece. It's like, yeah, I need to have these skills developed. I need to be prepared for whatever it is when I do align with it. Right. So it's like an active preparation where you have your practices that continually refocus you, that continually sharpen your skills so that when the time's ready, like you're ready to flow with that rather than fight it or shut it down.
So if somebody has made it this far in this podcast and you were going to leave them with your final thoughts on the idea of awakening, what would that be?
Hey, pay attention to your struggles, especially the repeated ones. And the reality is you're probably creating it on some level. You're probably in your own way based on how you're operating. There's deeper levels to all these things. And, if something's trying to get your attention, like it's going to come through the form of discomfort and struggle and painful situations. And that's designed to, once we talk about the mirror all the time, all those things of like, well, yeah, this is showing me something about myself. And so the journey is always inward. It's always about discovering how am I blocking these things? Why am I causing these problems? And it's generally not conscious. It's generally unconscious. When we talk about awakening, we're trying to bring things to conscious awareness and make new decisions, right? So many of these decisions you've made are very old or they were made for you and you just adopted them. Some of that stuff's good. Some of it's probably not working very well for you. But this idea of awakening is asking questions about the things that don't work for you. So if things are going great, we're good. We don't need to really dig in there. But the opportunities are going to be, the gold is going to be in the struggle. It's going to be in the areas that you're not aligned with, where you're fighting yourself. And these things are representative of deeper things. So I'm fighting myself because I've probably self-sacrificed. I've probably betrayed myself in certain ways to conform to certain ideas. And so that's gotten me off track where based on my past, I've had some painful events happen and I've formed limiting beliefs around that. I've have some ideas that are filtered through the pain and that won't let me see possibility because I'm only trying to protect myself. And so we're always concerned here with freeing you up from that pain, trying to see it through a different lens. How can I see it in a way that honors me, that is self-compassionate, that's not built on shaming yourself? Those are all pretty intense things that can really spiral us. And so it's about shifting this relationship with yourself to, where can you make peace with things? Where can you forgive? Forgiveness is a primary pillar here where we got to learn to let go of the past, even if it was really painful, because if not, we're trapped there. We're stuck in the past and we just formed all these beliefs to protect ourselves from moving forward. That's really the freedom you seek. And so when we talk about like evolving or awakening, we're moving towards freedom, which is your true nature, which is you're here to grow and you are here to work through challenges to discover yourself. That's the main idea we always talk about is with relationships or problems. There's things going on inside that don't feel very good. And you think if you just fix the external stuff, that's going to solve your problem. And it may do that temporarily, But generally, there's collateral damage. Generally, there's other things going on where you're going to have to revisit that problem over and over again until you learn the lesson. And the lesson's always inside. The lesson's your relationship to yourself. Yeah, if I believe it needs to be a struggle, if I believe it needs to be really hard, that's kind of what I'm going to get, right? And so it's about aligning your beliefs to support your path, and we align our path with our strongest desires, the things that are most meaningful to you, and because that's what's going to push you to work through the challenges. We need something that's going to have some sort of benefit for you to want to do that work. And through that work, we discover ourselves and we awaken to a bigger picture. We see bigger possibilities for ourselves. We actually find a lot more peace within ourselves, and we actually get a lot more fulfillment because we're making progress towards things. There's so many tiers and dimensions to this where it can be this continuous unfolding of more and more self-discovery, which makes you more and more connected to yourself, which is what's going to allow you to radiate joy and be at peace with yourself and be supportive and loving to the people around you. I believe that's a spiritual thing. It's about living out your potential. And you do that by conquering these limitations that you've formed within yourself. Some of those you chose yourself, some of those were just given to you. So, but whatever you have inside you, that's your work to do. It's just about questioning that and trying to bring it to a better place, so that all we're trying to do is take it to neutral, from that negative place to a neutral place. Now you're free of it. And now your mind can shift where you're no longer trying to protect yourself from that pain. And so that pain is why we hurt other people. That's why, we might do things out of integrity, right? So that's the problems. All the problems in the world are created from that place. And it's also lack of awareness. If I don't know any better, I might not know how I'm affecting other people. As we increase our awareness through this process, so I'm discovering myself at a deeper level, and then my awareness of the situation expands. So now I can see more dynamics going on. I'm more emotionally available to the present moment. And that's what allows me to navigate life in a clean way, where I'm very just in tune with things around me, and I'm navigating from this place of just this continuous growth and self-development of, I just want to know myself at a deeper level, and that's where I'm going to be able to serve at a greater level, right? I'm increasing my capacity to give, and that's where we really have a lot of things to offer people. That's where our gifts lie, is with the clean motivation to show up fully present and fully embodied so that we can make the most out of life.
All right. So if someone is thinking about, ways they can connect with you to learn more, or they're curious about your one-on-one coaching, let's talk a little bit about all the places they can find you and what you offer.
Yeah. So if you're curious about this work, you can visit my website, brandonthielk.com. And on there, you can schedule a free 30-minute strategy session with me. So I'll get to know a little bit more about you and share how I can help. This is generally the areas you're struggling with, or if you're looking to take on some big challenge or goal, like I can help you with that stuff. And, we do it with this, keeping you in alignment with yourself. So I don't ask you to self-sacrifice or do things that aren't true for you. It's more, I serve as a guide. I'm just helping you find your best answers. And also, if you'd like to register for my newsletter, The Lightning Report, so I send that out weekly on updates on the business. You can do that on my website as well. Also, if you want to follow along on YouTube and Instagram at Brandon Thielk, post out there pretty regularly, a lot of content like this. If you like it, please like, share, comment. Would love to hear from you guys. Also on TikTok, I'm at bthielk. Once again, more videos there. Be on the lookout for upcoming workshops, webinars, things like that. We'll be starting some with the new year, some new offerings. So yeah, excited to hear from you guys. If you like this or have any suggestions about topics you'd like to hear about, would love to hear from you.
That would be amazing. I would just add that this podcast will come out on Cyber Monday. And if you're in the business of giving yourself a gift, setting up a call with Brandon and figuring out a way to work with him would be a great gift for you to give yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, that'd be amazing. All right, we'll see you next time.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, bye.